The purpose of this video is to walk you through the steps that you would need to follow in order to take data that you have been provided with and analyze it, create linear regression equations, which then could be fed into a price optimization analysis. The idea here, if you look in columns A and B, is this is all of the data that might be collected in a particular situation. This is how many people were trying to sell them at this price. That's the most accurate way to understand this. So at $92, there were one day they went out and surveyed around some arena somewhere, and they found that at $92 there were 469 people trying to sell tickets. On another day, or for another similar event, there were tickets at $38. There were only 225 people trying to sell at that price. And similarly, at a different day, there were 222 people selling at $45. So you get a sense that the higher the price, the more people trying to sell tickets. On the other tab, then you have tickets bought, and again, it shouldn't really be bought, it should be people trying to buy. So when the price was $29, there was over 1,000 people, 1,133 people trying to buy tickets at $29. And there were 822 people trying to buy tickets at $800. So I'm going to change this to scalp tickets being sold. And I'm going to go back here, and this is more accurately all being scalped. In other words, they aren't sold yet, so we can't really say they've been scalped. They're trying to scalp them at that price. Whether they did or they didn't, we are not worried about that. So they're, like I said, $92. You had 469 people scalping tickets, or 469 tickets being scalped. That's probably the better way to say it, since some people were probably selling multiple tickets. Alright, so now what does that mean? Well, we want to convert this information. We want to simplify it. Obviously, it's really hard to look at this and make sense of what price we should sell at. So we need then to take all of the data, and there's many rows. There's 500 rows. I just did end arrow down, and you can see we have 500. Now over here, this is a sample, okay, and we only take a sample sometimes, and those samples in fact don't even reflect the exact values now, so the data has changed a little bit since the samples. But we're not going to worry about the samples in this case. We're just going to use the original data, and we're going to do a calculation based on it. You should know how to do a scatter graph. That was done and demonstrated earlier, so we're going to take it for granted that you can create this scatter graph from this X and Y data for all being scalped. Alright, now in it, here are the different prices, and here are the number of tickets being scalped. So as you look across, you see that, and you get a sense of how there's this general trend that more tickets are offered to be scalped. More people or more tickets are being offered for sale, the higher the price. Now, how steep is this line? That is what is calculated here. The slope is how steep the line is. So if I click on that and double click, actually, we see there is actually an Excel function called slope. And in that, if I click here, you'll see it has the known y's. What is the range of known y's? Which, of course, is here, all the way to the bottom. And then here are the known x's. The known x's are in column A. So you can use this formula to calculate the slope of the line, which we'll show later how that works, or how that's used in the formula. Intercept is the other part, and again there's actually a function called intercept, and it uses the same inputs. It uses the known y's and it uses the known x's, so it's going to use the same data, and it just changes the word from slope to intercept, and that gives us the intercept. Well, what is the intercept? Well, rather than the slope of the line, the intercept is where it hits 0. I guess you could call that the point after and below which nobody is trying to scalp tickets. In other words, nobody wants to sell a ticket for lower than $6.41. I hope that makes sense. All right, the other way to do it is right on the chart itself, and this is the one that makes the most sense for most people. So now let's focus in on the way that most people will understand this, and that is using the actual scatter graph. If I click on the graph and I click the plus sign, I will notice that it has a choice of chart elements, and at the very bottom it has the option of adding a trend line. I'm going to check that, and then I'm going over. You don't see anything yet because the trend line is honestly hidden. It's not looking big enough. So I'm going to go over, and it looks like I need to scroll down just a little bit here to go to where it says more options. So I'm going to click on more options. It gives me the linear, and it also allows me at the bottom to display the equation on the chart, and another one that's not as important down here. It says delay r squared. Display r squared. Don't worry about that. It's not as important to you at this point. It will be very important when you get into doing this in statistics. So here's my equation, has shown up on the page, and that's the most important thing right there. That is what we're going to take over and use in our price optimization, but more on that in a little bit. First of all, let's make sure our trend line is visible, and what we'll do for that is under the formatting, I want to make sure I have my line selected. I believe that's my line now. See, it says line here, and I want a solid line, and I'm going to make it a red line. There we are. It's starting to show up now, and I am going to make it a lot thicker. And I think rather than dots, I'd like it to be a little more solid. In fact, maybe I should make it completely solid. There we go. So now we can see the line through the dots that reflects this equation. So it's approximate. Remember we said that we give up some reality? Well, all that blue edging there, that's the reality we're giving up in order to come up with an explanation of the relationship between the number of people willing to sell tickets and the price at which the tickets are set. We can take this and change the format on it and so on and make it more beautiful. But for now, I just want to acknowledge that as the equation. Now, what we're going to do next is go over to the purchased, and it's going to have the same scenario. I'm not going to have the ability to show you with the selection I have, but it's the same situation of tickets, data, XY data. There's some sample data which we're going to ignore, but here is the chart, and again I'm going to go on here, and I am going to see, I'm going to close something here so that I get my plus signs. I want to use my plus, add a trend line, and choose. I would like linear, but it's going to have to be more information than that, so I'm going to choose more options, linear, scroll down, and display on the chart. And again, there's the correlation down below it, and what you'll see is here it is. I can hit bold and get that there. I would also increase the size of it. But there you see the equation, and this is describing the line that goes through this. Now, if I go back to my line, find my line in there somewhere, trend line options, let's see, where's my line? There it is. I'm going to click on my line, and I'm going to go to my formatting, and I'm going to say solid line, and again I like red, so make sure you've chosen red, and let's change the width of the line to something very visible, and then let's change it to a solid line. So now we can see the approximation. Now in this case, because the blue dots are more spread out, it gives you an idea of how much more reality that we're giving up in order to explain the relationship between how many people want to buy tickets. Okay, it says being sold. It really, we should change that to being, let's just leave it at that. Somebody's trying to sell them. So this is the relationship between how many people are trying to sell tickets at the different prices, and obviously as the price goes down, the number of people wanting to sell tickets becomes less. I'm sorry. Let me say that again. So as you have at this point in place here, if we had looked at the intercept, let me scroll back up. I don't have it here, but if I had done the intercept analysis, the intercept would have been right about here, and it's basically saying when the price gets over $250, nobody buys a ticket. Whereas as the price drops, more and more people are wanting to buy these tickets that are being scalped. I also want to show a third way to come up with the values that we need for our equation. This is the one, this is the second one, and then a third way to do it, to come up with these important numbers. You'll see these are the important numbers in here. We've got the y, the x, and then we've got the two numbers that represent the slope and the intercept. So that's the nice way that we do it and see it in a line right away. But what's a third way? Well, if you don't have it, there's a separate video that talks about how to get data analysis tool pack into your Excel spreadsheet. But we've already done that here, and we've got data analysis. And I want to show you how to use that to come up with the same numbers, because in statistics you will do that. So I click on it, and it comes up with this. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do a regression, and so we click OK, and it asks for, surprise surprise, and it's not a surprise, you know that, the y range and the x range. Well, where's our y's? Well, here are the y's, and I'm going to do shift and arrow down. Oh, it doesn't want to do that. Okay. Well, I'm going to type in then 503, because I happen to know that that's the length of the range. And then here for the x's, I'll start here and I'll work down, and again it's not going to go to 503, but I'll take it there. And then we're going to add labels to our final output. We'll go ahead and put it into a new worksheet, and I think that's all we really need to do at this point in time. So click OK, and here we will have our regression statistics, and those are like our R-squareds that you saw in the other chart. But what's really important is down here, these coefficients, and I need to expand this. These should look very familiar to you. I'm going just highlight them and format cells. Let's make the font bright, and now you will see better what I'm talking about. So here we have the intercept and then the slope, which has that funny looking label there. But anyway, these are our numbers and the third option that matches up with these.